Hi, welcome back to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy, and today we're talking about being your own best advocate. But you know, I can't not do a segment and talk about some nerdy science too. What happens a lot of times when patients come in to see me, and again, this is a lifelong, over 20 years of being patient advocate, because at the end of the day, there's nothing that I can do for you. It's what I do with you, empower you, educate you, and help you on the journey. But what happens a lot of times is patients come in to see me, and when they finally found me, sometimes it's the last resort. And I'm not trying to be everyone's doctor, and my disclaimer is don't drop your doctor. I'm just giving you a perspective so that you can empower yourself and know that hopefully if I break this down and in a way that, you might be an accountant and you know accounting, or you might be a teacher and you know how to teach. I'm a doctor and I know some nerdy science, and so I want to show you that you can understand some nerdy science too, and you almost have to. People know more about their cars because they have a user's manual in their car that they can look and they can see simple things if they're having a little light go on or something like that. So there are some basic things that you can know, and doctors aren't big gods in the sky that have anything that's special. We just have some extra education, and we have spent a lot of time honing our skills to diagnose and to treat. So a lot of times when patients come into my office, and I treat men and women, but just because I am a female and because I've had pretty much every hormone problem that you can name, I can really relate to women, and I think that relatability really helps them. And I always say men are like the light switch, women are like the cockpit of an airplane. We're very complicated, and that's mostly because we have babies and we do, very complicated hormonal things with our bodies. So when they come in, oftentimes they feel very overwhelmed. Maybe they're overweight, maybe they have PCOS or endometriosis, they have all sorts of hormone issues. Sometimes they don't even know what their hormone issues are because they're just scared and they've tried and nobody's listened to them. So again, you have to be your own best advocate. And sometimes they're just overweight or they're not sleeping and they just want help. And sometimes really honestly, they just want somebody to listen to them. And so if you can guide them and help them just feel a little more comfortable, we love to make people feel like family. So that's the most important thing, is that a relationship with your doctor is very, very important, because all healing happens through reduction of stress. So if you're going to a doctor and every time you think, oh my gosh, they're not going to listen to me again, that's very stressful. So we want to not have that be your experience. So how to be your own best advocate is very, very important. One of the things that happens, and this happened to me in residency, and I saw it very regularly, is that the pharmaceutical companies seem to drive everything, and big pharma, big insurance, and it's a game, and doctors have to see. I know in residency, we were supposed to see anywhere from 40 to 50 patients a day. And at that rate, the doctors got their hand on the door, and they really just can't spend the time with you that you need them to hear, that you need that comprehensive, putting the whole picture together. And sometimes my patients will have lists they come in with, and so I give them plenty of time. And so that's another thing, is that time is very important. So if you only have a few minutes with your doctor, you have to use that time very, very wisely. And if it's a doctor who doesn't like you doing internet searches, or if it's a doctor who doesn't like you making lists, then you have to be your advocate and find somebody who will. I always say that a headache is not an aspirin deficiency, and if you have a symptom, there's probably some nutrient deficiency, there's some underlying cause. And one of the things too that comes up with, one of the biggest things I see with thyroid, and about 30% of the population have some sort of thyroid dysfunction, and we'll talk about that on the nerdy whiteboard section here in a little bit, but they come in and they've got all these thyroid symptoms that you can just pinpoint to thyroid, or you can pinpoint to an estrogen issue, or a female hormone estrogen issue, or a female hormone issue. And so all those things have some basis with hormones. And so you really take a list of symptoms and you can attach it to something going on with somebody. So getting to things like your mood swings, or anxiety, or depression, hair loss, constipation, skin issues, you're comprising a list over time, and you walk in with this big list and that doctor only has a few minutes to spend with you, you really have to look at what each one of those symptoms could be and make a picture for yourself before you go in. Some of the underlying things that doctors just don't look for, because pharmaceutical companies just give a pill for an ill, right? So the doctor gives you one symptom and then they just throw a medication at that. They're not looking at things like gut dysfunction or toxins from the environment or oxidative stress or chronic inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, food sensitivities, mental or emotional stress. What are you going through? You know, when I sit down with patients, I want to know who they are first, and they always want to jump into the medical stuff first. I'm like, hold on, let's talk about who you are and what's going on in your life, because that's very relevant. What your experience has been with other doctors, that's very relevant to where you are now and how I can get you to be your own best advocate, because actually it makes my job a lot easier at the end of the day. And a lot of times when people have had bad experiences, when they come, they, you know, are just so overwhelmed and just don't even know where to start. So sometimes you have to know where to start. So I work with people a lot. And again, I can't be everybody's doctor, but looking at that's very important. The origin of the word doctor comes from the Latin meaning teacher. So all doctors should teach. And if they only have time to throw a pill at you with their hand on the door in a short visit, if they don't teach you, you're not going to take that medication. You're not going to be what we call compliant, which I don't like that word because it makes it sound like there's some weakness on your part, and there's not. You just don't understand. But if they don't take the time to explain things to you, that's going to be a really tough place for you to know how important it is and why. A lot of people do their lab tests and they don't even know why or how that's relevant or why it's important or why they're taking a medicine or what their numbers are. So you have to empower yourself. And it's not like you have to know everything about medicine or all medicine, but you do have to know what's relevant to you. Lab tests. Most people, when they go to a doctor, you have to be willing to check and ask for the labs that you want. Most doctors will only do something that has like your sugar, your electrolytes, maybe they'll check a little bit of liver, maybe they'll check some kidney, maybe they'll do a cholesterol, maybe they'll do a CBC, and that's it. So if you have more symptoms, I guarantee you that that cursory lab is not going to be a solution for you. And when I first started learning about lab work, and you get the lab books that you can order labs from. That book is like a telephone book. And if you're old enough to remember telephone books, now everything's on the computer, right? But it's like a telephone book, and there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different labs that you can order. And if you're looking for something, you can't just do like a little screening set. And that might be fine for a physical for just a healthy person. And one of the problems that I have is when people get a cholesterol level checked, that can be a problem, and I'll explain that in just a little bit, because it's not going to give enough information, and doctors don't even look at that basic thing like cholesterol the way they should. And I can guarantee you that just the cursory things with these labs are not going to give you the answers you're looking for if you have some underlying cause, a hormone imbalance, issues with your gut, if you have some sort of environmental thing that's affecting you. There's all sorts of different things that could be going on. So we're going to need a little bit more blood work. One of the things that happens is when somebody comes into my practice, I can look at them with their lab work. So lab work is very important, and I always say the blood doesn't lie, but I can look at where you store your weight. Is it in your hips? Is it in your belly? Is it all over like a thyroid or insulin problem? Are you a male that has a testosterone issue? So when I look at that, I can really tell where your imbalances lie, and then with more lab work, we can really look at a lot that's going on with you. One thing about cholesterol, I will say, that often leads to something called polypharmacy is that doctors check your cholesterol levels about the later time in life. And when they look at that, they just want to throw you on a cholesterol medication. So these levels are more than just a medication or a pill for an ill. So you really have to understand not only your numbers, but the relevancy and how it plays together in the whole system. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about some different hormone levels and some things that might be relevant that you might look for and that you might need to ask for. So we'll be right back with the Naked Doctor. Hi, welcome back to the Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy, and today we're talking about being your own best advocate. And this is our whiteboard segment. So of course I have to draw some pictures. And if you are a patient coming into the clinic, I'll basically assess everything that's going on with you, and then I'll start drawing pictures. And it's funny because I went as an advocate with a friend of mine to a GI doctor just recently, and he was explaining things, the way the GI tract was working, and he walks over and he looks at the table and the table paper. He gets his pen out and he starts drawing pictures of the GI tract. And I was like, this is so cool, we're kindred spirits. So you really can find a doctor, traditional doctors, who even specialists, who will talk to you and will explain things, and you deserve that. And unfortunately, you might have to keep looking if you haven't found that. So when I sit down with a patient and I listen to their issues, every issue that you have goes back to a hormone problem. If you look at someone in a nursing home, everything that you see, from skin wrinkles to incontinence, breaking hips, all that is hormone related. When people hear the word hormone, they immediately start thinking cancer, and they immediately start thinking estrogen. And I've had so many patients and people out in the community, when I say what I do is hormones, they hear that and they're like, oh, I can't take hormones, I had cancer. So I want you to take that out of your mind. And when I say hormones, I want you to think chemical messengers that drive every single process in your body. So without messengers, you don't get anything done. You have to have those messengers. So one of the things that happens, and I'll prepare you for this in the traditional world, is that when you go get a quote physical, there's only so many blood tests they do, right? And one of the things they might do is a cholesterol level. And when they look at your cholesterol, basically they're thinking from this place about pharmaceutical company issues and what they're going to do to get you on pharmaceuticals, because that's just the way the process is driven. So what do they do? As you age, your cholesterol level, most of it, they'll tell you that, you need to just eat less cholesterol in your diet. But most of your cholesterol is actually made by yourself in the liver. So yes, eating healthy fats is important to have good levels of cholesterol. But when you look at cholesterol, actually what it is a hormone. And this part of it is sterol or steroids. So you've probably heard of steroids before. So a lot of people think cholesterol is just a fatty globule ready to cause a heart attack. But no, it's very important as a precursor hormone to all your other sex steroid hormones, right? And you have to have this. Well, as we age, if you're a female, you're born with all the eggs you're ever going to have in your ovaries. And once they're gone, your ovaries basically dry up. And so what happens is your liver starts making more cholesterol so that can make more of your hormones, and all this happens through your adrenal glands. So if your adrenal glands are compromised, you have stress issues or something like that, then you're going to be pumping out more cholesterol. So you can see, if the doctor sees that and they're just looking through that lens of pharmaceuticals, then they're going to put you on some cholesterol meds to try to block your cholesterol. Well, if you do that, then all your other hormones downstream, and men and women have all the same hormones, just different percentages, then if you block that, then you're going to block your progesterone, which is your main sleep hormone, testosterone, which in women can help also as the same things as men with libido and building muscle, and then also your estrogens. So cholesterol meds, and my disclaimer is I'm not your doctor and don't stop any medications, but be educated about this. Know why you're taking these medicines. So if you block all these hormones, now you're going to have even more symptoms. Well, that's great for the pharmaceutical companies, because now they have a pill for nil, right? And so if you have hot flushes, they can give you gabapentin or some kind of antidepressant, or they just tell you you're crazy. And so who wants to do that? You'll be on what we call polypharmacy forever. Then you start having side effects from the cholesterol meds like muscle aches, and then now you're on pain meds. So it's endless where that can go. Also, your adrenal glands make your cortisol, which is your body's natural anti-inflammatory hormone. So if you are making excess cortisol, you can get belly fat. If you don't have enough cortisol, you can't handle stress on your body. So all of this is very important. And if your doctor's not looking at it from a holistic or what we call functional medicine view, then you'll end up just on a bunch of pills for the rest of your life. So being your own best advocate also includes, when you go to the doctor, asking for what you need, but it also includes, what if you get sick? What if you need to go to the hospital? What if you start having chest pain one night and you're terrified, right? And a lot of people are, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. Sometimes you're thinking, well, will my insurance pay? And if they will pay, how much will they pay? And how do you be your own best advocate? So one thing that I did is I did write a book, and this is my version that's a little bit tattered up, but I wrote a book called Healthy Ambitions, Tools for Taking Charge of Your Healthcare. And I wrote this in 2008. So a long time ago. It was one of the first books that I wrote. But basically what I went through is it's a guide for going to the doctor and asking those questions about your insurance, checking with your insurance company. And it's all about knowing before those things happen, because when you're in a panic mode like this, if stress has induced this or something else is going on, that stress of the unknown is just going to be worse. And sometimes when people start having those thoughts, they won't even go to the ER because they're like, I mean, just think about the implications of that, that if you're actually having a heart attack and you talk yourself out of going because you're scared or because you don't know what's going to happen, or if it's going to even be paid for, or what kind of bill that's going to be. So many concerns. So one of the things that you can do, and there's a lot of books like this out there, but this one I did write in mind with how to prepare before something happens. And one of the things that's also included in here is something called advance directives. And people hear will and living will, and they think, oh, nothing's ever going to happen to me. But especially if you're in, my age group in my 50s, we do start thinking a little bit more about our mortality and what's going to happen. And if you do end up with something catastrophic, and heaven forbid you end up on a vent or something happens, what kind of life perhaps what would that outcome look like? And you don't want your loved ones to have to make decisions like taking you off life support. So my advance directives, I went through a lawyer and did it, but you don't have to, because I actually have a sheet in here that you can fill out, and it's your advance directives, and all you have to do is get it notarized. And so that's pretty much it, but you have to let a family member know, and somebody that's your advocate, so when you go, you can be prepared. But basically things like that. So on mine, I basically have, if I'm on life support more than 3 weeks, I'm done, I'm out, that's it. So, you can make those decisions for yourself, and those can look, different ways. If you are critically ill and have cancer or something like that, all the more reason to have this done. Would you want CPR? Would you want somebody breaking ribs on you if you're already at end of life? So all sorts of different things to consider. I also have checklists that you can ask your doctor, because again, being your own advocate, you're going to have to be prepared before you go, because the time frame that they have to work with you, you have to be your own best advocate, and you have to watch your rights and responsibilities too. And there's just so many aspects of that you really want to be prepared before you go. Patient's rights. What are your rights? All sorts of things. You have a right to information. You have a right to your records. And I would highly recommend that you always get your records and look through that. Sometimes medical billing, you'll get billed for things that didn't happen. Sometimes there's something called the Transparency Act. So every hospital that does any insurance billing or anything like that, they're required to show their prices online, so you can go compare. So there's so many different rights, confidentiality, so many things that are your rights, and your responsibility is to make sure that you're getting all those needs met. So some of the labs that you can have done besides, and you can go and stop this and record it and watch it later, but some of the labs that traditional doctors will do will be just your basic, your CMP, your CBCs. Maybe they'll do a diabetes screening called a hemoglobin A1C, but other things that are super important, and then sometimes your cholesterol as well, lipid panel. But other things that are important are your vitamin D, your B12, your folate, your iron, and then a lipid panel, of course, so that you can see if you have enough cholesterol to make your hormones right. If you're a male, you can do a cancer screening, PSA. But these are the hormones that affect so much about the way we feel and how we age. So there are all sorts of different estrogens that we can look at, testosterone, insulin, and we can see what your sugar storage hormone is doing. Progesterone is huge for sleep, and then the whole thyroid panel. Don't just get a TSH, get your whole panel and ask them to really look into that and make sure that you're getting your needs met for all of those issues as well. And true story, I'm a physician, and I had an incident where I would have died had I not had an advocate in the hospital. I was 8 months pregnant with my son, and I got pneumonia. I was really, really sick, and I had to go into the hospital. And they put me in the ward at the end of the hall because they thought, hey, she's a doctor, she'll be fine. And so anyway, I started having breathing problems, and I kept pushing the little button, and the nurses would come in and they'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "No, I can't breathe. Something's really, really wrong." And they're like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." They'd look at my O2 sats and my blood pressure, and they'd be like, "You're fine." And I would say, "No, no, I'm really, really sick." So I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. I just closed my eyes and I thought, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die, and my son's gonna die. And across town, we had a family friend who was eating dinner, and for some reason, divine intervention, I don't know, he gets up from the dinner table and drives across town and walks in, and I'm flatlined. And bottom line, I was in the ICU for several weeks. Was on a vent. Finally, it took helium to get me past it, which was a new intervention that they were trying. So had I not had that advocate, and again, divine intervention sent that advocate, I really recommend, if you're critically ill or you have a family member, take turns, have someone being their advocate if you possibly can, because I almost died, and I'm a doctor, and they just weren't listening. So it's really hard sometimes to get somebody to listen, but this is your life that you're depending on. So please, please, please don't be afraid to have and ask for an advocate and to have someone there. Hi, welcome back to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy, and today we're talking about being your own best advocate. And again, you don't have to know all this, and there won't be a quiz at the end, but I just want to show you some perspective of some things. If you were sitting across the desk from me and you just told me 10 things, maybe 5 things, it doesn't matter, that you've been experiencing or going through, I can show you a few things that might make you have a different perspective. So one of the first things is, a lot of people think that cholesterol is just a fatty globule ready to cause a heart attack. And it's not. It's a hormone. But when we're looking at different hormones too, we also have to look at the adrenals. A lot of doctors don't even recognize the adrenals. And the adrenals, unless they're completely shut down and they're not making hormones anymore, they have big tumor that's compressing them, and people are having lots of problems with like the big hump on the neck, or they're completely having immune problems or something. They don't even look at that. They don't really look at the pancreas until you're full-blown diabetic. And blood sugar issues are huge. 1/3 of our population is insulin resistant. And so you really need to know what your insulin levels are and how to approach that if there's a problem too. Maybe you need a low-carb diet. Maybe you need some different changes. Maybe it is time for medication before you're a full-blown diabetic. Maybe it's some nutrient deficiencies like magnesium or something else going on as well. So you really do have to look at the big picture there. A lot of things are so interrelated with the thyroid, things like leaky gut, immune dysregulation, the bacteria in your gut, inflammation that's going on, stress, and all that can lead to thyroid issues. So the thyroid is one of the biggest things that I see when people are having problems, when they're feeling tired, and when they come in and have hormone imbalances across the board, because so many different hormones compete with the thyroid. So if you really want to feel and look your best and have good health, then you are going to need to do just a little bit of homework to make sure that you know exactly what you need. So we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about 3 ways to be your best advocate and really be prepared before you go. Hi, welcome back to The Naked Doctor. I'm Dr. Tammy. Thank you for being here today. And I promised you at the end that I would share 3 ways to be your own best advocate. And again, I hope I didn't overwhelm you, because there's so much that you can know and that you will know if you enable yourself and empower yourself, and educating yourself is where that first step comes in. So knowing yourself is step number 1. And if you know your symptoms, especially women, we are caretakers. We have so much going on, and we don't often stop to take care of ourselves. It's kind of like the oxygen mask. You have to put that on yourself first. And then if oxygen's lost on the plane, you can help other people around you. But if you're unconscious, you can't. So you have to really know your symptoms. You have to listen to yourself. There have been times when I even stopped to go to the bathroom because I was so busy during the day or in school. So you kind of stop listening to yourself when you need to eat, or when you need to go to the bathroom, or when something's off. And once you feel better, sometimes it's like boiling a frog slow. You don't even realize how bad you felt until you feel better. So know what you need. And again, that's going to take a little bit of education on your part, a little bit of Googling, searching. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't even have to tell the doctor that you Google search. Just tell them, hey, I think this might be what's going on. Could we look at a few things? And if they're adamant that they won't help you, then find somebody who will, because you deserve it. And unfortunately, unless you ask for what you need, you're probably not going to get it, and you're going to get rushed through the system. And that's just the way it works. And last thing, number 3, is know how to get it. And sometimes knowing how to get it is just knowing where to go and listen to your intuition. And sometimes it's just that you have to go somewhere else, and you just have to be okay saying next. You know, one of the things I experienced throughout my life being a patient at some times and being an advocate for other people is it can be very frustrating. So just keep your calm, keep your cool, and just keep looking if you need to. So I hope the show is informative for you, and the most I want to do is empower you to get what you need and feel better. And if you're having symptoms, there's always something causing it. Again, a headache is not an aspirin deficiency, so just keep looking. Find us on Facebook. We're on YouTube, and there's tons of videos on YouTube I've collected and made over the years. So there's a lot out there at The Naked Doctor Show. It's under Dr. Tammy Tucker on our YouTube channel. And thenakeddoctorshow.com has all our recent shows, and you can get a lot of information on there as well. And if you do want to come see us and become part of our family, our website is healingartcenters.com, and we would love to have you come be part of our family. Y'all have a blessed week. Wonderful. I love you all very much, and we'll see you back here next week on The Naked Doctor.